Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to Deeply Human Leading. I am so excited to introduce you to one of our first guests today, Stacy McCarthy, someone I have known and I've actually had the pleasure of knowing for 30 years. My goodness, the years add up. And we've partnered together inside of some major organizational transformations. And honestly, out of everyone that I've worked with in my career, in leadership development and organizational change, Stacy is one of the most impactful architects of meaningful dialogue that I have ever met. And I do not say that lightly. What she does is not just design learning programs. Her actual company is Learning Design Network, but she creates in what I would say is more experiences that really ignite change rather than making people feel like change is being done to them, which can, kind of be the case in some instances. We've all probably been part of those environments. The reason that I think it works is because it's very sticky. It's very interactive. It's also deeply human in my humble view. It shifts how people think, not just what they know. And it got me thinking, in a world where AI is accelerating everything, what have we forgotten about the power of dialogue? What is it that about real conversations, real exchange between humans that maybe no tool can replace? And maybe when we do engage with AI in a more advanced way, maybe is there a way to deepen that dialogue and that meaning and that making and understanding between humans and AI? You can see that my brain was spinning on this. So I thought, who better to join us than Stacy McCarthy? Because with 30 years of watching organizations transform, maybe she can teach us something that would help us learn and step into this moment. And that's exactly what I want to explore with you today, Stacy. I will say one more thing. She's spent more than 30 years helping organizations close that gap between you have a vision, leadership vision, and then actually making it a reality. And she takes strategy and translates that into like daily, behavior that people can actually own. So I guess that's a little bit of a long intro, but please welcome Stacy McCarthy.
Thank you. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you, Leanne, because we do have such a long history together, and I just have a lot of I'm just excited to know you, and I like how you think, and yeah.
For sure. And, I failed to mention that we have a lot of parallels too. We first met one another in graduate school, and we both have had time living in Japan, living in Europe, working in cross-cultural learning environments where the power of how you create meaningful exchange of dialogue really matters. And so, actually, that's where I want to kind of start today, Stacy. Is I feel like you've built a lot of your career on a powerful premise, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that one-way dialogue, like just, hey, here's my vision, follow me. Here's where direction we're going. Anyone got any questions? Like that's just not enough, right? Like the PowerPoint deck with like 95 slides and like here's why we gotta align. It's okay for cognitive clarity, but you've always talked about the power of dialogue, that it's through dialogue that's where things stick. So I guess maybe tell me a little bit about what first kind of interested you in the art of dialogue, or maybe it's what captivated you or compelled you to say, I want to make dialogue come alive for humans in what I do every every day.
Yeah, I want to give an answer that is succinct enough and coherent enough. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about coherence because I think that is what is needed in this time of like information overload and the speed of content downloadedness. And we have so much access to information, but I think we're getting fragmented in our
Mm,
understanding and not
mm,
getting shared meaning.
mm,
So that has been kind of the challenge. And I will just speak to like living in Japan and notice just even being an expat there and noticing when there was an intention and that was completely misunderstood. And so how do we get, how do we
yes,
get
been
this?
there.
Yeah, we both have experienced that. And I think it is
Yeah.
what led me to want to learn more about cross cultural communication and how we connect and how things are misunderstood, and in an age of Google Translate, it's not necessarily translating the culture that is associated with that language, it's all about context and creating the understanding of that context. And you know that I think just grabbed my attention from when I was in high school and wanted to meet every foreign student in class and got involved in being an exchange student in Denmark for a year. And understanding different cultures definitely excited me, and having an understanding, even with learning another language. Oh, you think you count in terms of like ichimai nimai, like this is a flat surface, and ippon nihon, even language creates how you think. And that
Mm,
just kind of blew me away, really, as a young
mm,
person, just understanding, oh, we think differently. We're all human, but we are making sense of what it means to be human from really different perspectives. And it can be
mm.
so beautiful to really take on another culture and have some appreciation for what there is to be offered. So that got me excited.
Well, what do you mean by coherence? Let's talk about that because that really captured my attention. I agree with you, but I'm wondering if we have the same definition. So help me understand what coherence means for you.
Well, I think it's about getting to a place where it's okay to grapple with different perspectives. It's not just like one way, but we are still having some shared understanding that we can reach. For me, it's about being okay with even some paradox,
Mm,
and
mm,
but also being able to sort of manage the tensions of that. It's also like, if you think of it poetically, like in music, like you are able to, there's some abilities to sort of relax and be taken away from it, because when everything is all fragmented, that is the opposite opposite of coherence, like all these different understandings and all this chaotic energy. But to have some coherence of, okay, we can sing along together in this.
I love that. It's so true. It made me think of a couple of things. We are so fragmented, like as a whole, we're living in a time of deep polarization, not only in this country, but in many places around the world. The information is coming at us in little bits and bytes, and we have to try to make sense of it and then be able to live into that meaning on our own, right? And then how we connect with other people or don't connect with other people can limit our sense of contextual understanding. You said context matters, right? Um, and then there's an alignment that you talk about, like if music is coherent, is the difference between. I don't know if anyone else has had a fourth grade daughter study the violin and went to the violin concert where they weren't completely coherent yet. In that, it's like we're still learning, and it's like a little squeaky, and that doesn't create a kind of coherent. We're learning, right? But we're in our own kind of practice of an individual instrument versus everything coming together. And I feel like when you talk about coherence, dialogue seems like a place where we can make meaning together and make it then flow and lead into something that has progress. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, for sure, that resonates. And I think, like, in a time right now, like we're talking about being deeply human in the age of AI, kind of, it's a
Yeah.
big topic. We humans, we need a kind of a story arc, some way of understanding, like m- m- moving. And I think this is what we do with organizations when they have a vision, and people, the lived reality seems very different from like a vision. You really have to have some story there to help share, like, this is what is, but this is what could be, and what is the blissful state of what could be. And I think that's really needed right now in this time, because I think people have to sort of see a big picture and see where they are on that landscape. Because if you can't see, like, where you are and where you connect, it can be very discombobulating and worrisome. And like without some real narrative, fear can fill that vacuum instead of the idea of possibility.
Yeah, so what's interesting about that, you just said, like a narrative, like go from fear, right? Or like what's changing to like what could be. Like we need some help to get there sometimes.
Yeah.
But my experience of working with you is that it's not like a PR push, like, hey, here's 1,000 posters of what could be, and like just buy into this. And this is, I guess, what I want to explore the richness of for translation for all of us. Because I think, to be honest, on this podcast and in our work as a whole, we don't see AI as like super positive or super negative, right? It's not utopia or dystopia. It is absolutely just here. And thus, we have to find ways to not only, really embed it in our work to accelerate the learning and the growth, but maybe find ways to deepen our dialogue with one another. But I feel like the reality is there's sometimes trepidation or fear for many of us. Like what is happening to our world? It's catapulting so fast. Like what does this mean? And there's a small number of individuals who are making big decisions that could impact a lot of us. So, but then there's also the hope, right? And there's these like amazing things that it can actually do. So, how would you say the power of dialogue and story help us through this moment when we do have fear, but we also can see the hope? Like you don't just push one way of being. You kind of make space for that grittiness, don't you? Tell me more about.
I think we have to, so we're human. We don't process things at like machine speed, but now we have this tool that can really be insightful. I mean, it can. I use that word really intentionally, that it can pattern recognize and kind of give information back to us in ways that would been much harder to get. But we still have to have a sense making process, and dialogue helps with that. Dialogue, and not just speaking at people with big words, but like actually creating stories and that are relatable, that create an emotional arc of um buy-in, and what are we going through, and how are we going to kind of transform and all that grappling is needed. I mean, this is maybe a little bit of a tangent, but like, why is handwriting so important? Because it slows our brains down and it helps us to make connections that when we're typing don't necessarily happen. It creates creativity. Or why is improvisation like lighting up so many parts of our brain versus a rehearsed speech? Like, why do you switch on when somebody's just talking authentically versus something that they've memorized? And I think that that's deeply human, and that deeply human, sorry to bring that in, but it is a good thing, because always in my work we've created that we've broken it down to, oh, you've got this grand vision. Lived reality is not looking that way for your
Right.
day-to-day workers
Let's talk
and
about it.
even your customers. Where's the gap, and how do we kind of translate it? And so that there can be kind of a shift of perspective and an understanding. But you're not going to shift your perspective unless you shift the story you're telling yourself. So it really is about that narrative that's
That's
important. And
important. We don't shift our perspective unless we shift the story that we're telling ourselves. And
right.
our perspective, or even our perception, the way that we perceive the world, could be narrow or could be wide. And it
Right.
seems like what I've witnessed your work do is make space for differing opinions, make space for dialogue and debate, even like at tables of employees, and honor those differences, and yet still invite people to go from like from where you sit on this far side and where you sit on this far side. Maybe there's a broader view that we could hear both, and maybe an even third way or another perspective. I don't know if that's fair to say, but is that the kind of space that you try to create in conversation?
Sounds it sounds a little esoteric, but what I will say in the way that I approach these is it's very tactile because, I work with and we create these learning maps and we have cards and you're kind of ground it's not just open-ended conversation, it's grounded in
True.
like if you had to choose this side or that side, what would you choose? And then that drives a certain conversation around is it this or is it that, and there's a little bit of a nuance between the two. Or if you're working with paradoxes and there's a continuum, like where are we on the continuum and where do we need to be for this new future, like so it drives conversation around, well, I think we're here, and other people are like, oh, I think we're over here. Well, that's interesting, that's not so in my work group, but okay, we can see that there are different lived realities, but what's needed now for this new future that we're already living in. We drive that kind of conversation, and only it only really works if you share actual stories of like, well, this is my lived experience, and then it's like, oh, I didn't really think about the implications that way. Having different parts of the organization kind of understand the lived experience is super relative, and that's all about creating the context. So it is hard to explain what I do. It's a challenge for me, but I think the critical component, and you brought it up, I think early in the introduction maybe, is about listening, and then through that listening kind of create tangible stories, maybe even story cards, moments, various points of view that then people can not debate because that seems sort of combative, but really grapple with. I think it's that grappling and that wrestling that helps to shift thinking or expand thinking or kind of open people up or just provide new perspective, and that's always been a component in whatever work I've done, whether it's cross-cultural training or I did do some work with World Game, which was kind of understanding big systems learning, and I think kind of sometimes gamifying it a little bit helps with driving a certain kind of dialogue that's not only open-ended, but, um helps to kind of drive the right conversations that are gonna help people, deepen their understanding of their current reality.
What's interesting is as I'm listening to you, it strikes me that you help us all slow down, grapple with something, to use your language, which is cognitively and emotionally in many ways. Like how what's my lived experience, but also how does that make me feel? Let me consider different angles and then listen more deeply. So you help us slow down in order to ultimately speed up to be able to meet the moment where it is. But I'm also thinking, so I'm listening to this not only like as a professional and leader and thinking about how I also teach executive teams because I also try to teach them the difference between discussion and dialogue. I'm, you know me, I'm into like the etymology of words, and discuss to discuss comes from Latin, which means to smash into tiny little pieces, which we do when we're problem solving.
Wait,
What's the
say that
solution?
again. It's to dialogue is to what?
No,
Wait,
to
what?
discuss, the
Yeah,
etymology comes from Latin and it means to smash into tiny little pieces, which is kind of
nice.
what we do in problem solving. Like we break it down into like we use our five whys and we use like little fishbone analysis and we try to figure out like what's the root cause analysis, and it's very helpful to figure out like is it this problem or that problem? Is it this solution or that solution? But to me, when we discuss, it's like a ping pong match going back and forth. Here's my thought. What's your thought? Here's my thought. What's your thought? And doesn't create space for what you've been talking about, which is making meaning or grappling with differences. And so then I looked up the etymology or the history of the word dialogue, and that comes from Greek. And this is not to say that I like the Greeks more than the Italians. I'm just looking at the root word because both cultures are great to visit. but as I understand it, dialogue comes from creating shared meaning together, and it's because to logos, right? And dia, the whole connection is to create shared meaning together. But you need to slow down to actually listen to one another. And I guess I'm sitting here as a parent also listening and thinking about how do we help the humans around us, whether we have kids or maybe you don't have kids, and you have others in your family or your community, your workplace. How do we help each other slow down and make listen more deeply and make meaning together? Because I feel like with social media and if I just go start doom scrolling on my phone, like it's just broadcasting a certain point of view, and it's not necessarily advocating that I slow down and make meaning with someone else. Like what have you learned in your years that we need to do to kind of, maybe it's something we've
Well,
forgotten, Stacy.
I actually, this may just feel like such a tangent, but stay with me because I don't think it is. But I will tell you, I don't think it's something that like a finger wagging, like we need to do this. I think people are naturally gravitating towards what's needed. And I'll just say, I am a potter. I've been a potter. I learned when I lived in Japan. I make my own mugs, and I am telling you, there is an explosion of pottery studios right here. I live in San Francisco. This is like sort of the birth of AI and all these people working in AI and AI money or whatever. There are so many people that want a craft that is
Mm,
grounding, that is earth, that is
mhm.
connection.
Yeah.
We have Monday night mahjong, and mahjong somehow has like expanded. It's not just in Chinatown or in the Jewish communities. It's all over, all ages. They want that tactile experience. I mean,
Interesting.
it's an explosion, a tactile
Yeah.
experience of connecting, of being together with community. You see flyers up on telephone poles. I mean, what? We don't need to have flyers on telephone poles, but it's about events of gatherings, physical spaces. Like there is a craving and hunger for that now more than I've seen like in the last whatever 20 years. Like it really it I think we're filling that gap. Like we are as a human species naturally right balancing this
Yeah.
out in our own way. I mean, you can just look at there are trends. Like if you look at the trends, people
Yeah.
are crafting more and
Sure.
gathering in ways that I think are meaningful and needed. So I think that we're doing it naturally. The challenge I have is
Mm.
convincing leaders of organizations to invest in like developing this time to really gather together meaningfully. And I mean, don't gather together and then put a talking head keynote speaker up in front. That's something you
Right.
can watch individually from the comfort of your couch.
Right.
And the one-way communication, like, fine, I think it's powerful, great videos, all that. But if you're going to take the time, and you need to take the time, if you're going to take the time to gather physically,
Yep.
um, craft that, design it. This is a time for intentional design like no
Yep.
other. So craft
Mm.
and design that time so that you can more quickly create the dialogue to get to where we all need to go, to more quickly come to a shared understanding. I love your definition of dialogue and creating a shared understanding. And I think, this is what discovery learning is all about. It's not the PowerPoint deck. It's like, let's put all the puzzle pieces in front of you. And now together, let's build this picture together. And I've got this piece, you've got that piece. What are the missing pieces? And it's exciting and gamified in a way, but it's very, like, we also called it engaged learning, right? Because you
Yeah.
cannot be on your phone, you cannot be distracted, you have to be present. And
Mm.
we need this presence with each other. Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible. I mean, no phones at the dinner table, people. Like, we need to look into each other's
It's a
eyes.
good rule. It's a good rule.
We need to look at each other's eyes and just
Yeah.
like be there, even in silence. Like, but that presence is important. So it. I think I answered that in a very circuitous way, but I guess I am a believer in some of that non-linear communication that we can have when we're together and when someone says something that excites you and makes you go down that path. So hopefully I did bring it to
Well,
your
it's
question.
it's interesting, Stacey, because you're also saying that we have a natural urge. So it's almost like the faster that things get, I think
Yes.
it was Thomas Friedman who said this initially in his book. I think it was called Thank You for Being Late. It was this idea that the faster that things get, the more
Mm,
that things are slow, reflective, and intentional, that stuff is going to matter more. And
yeah.
if you look at the trend underneath the trend, so everything's AI, everything right now, but if you look at the trend underneath the trend, there's I believe, going to be a backlash against AI. There's
Yeah.
already this hunger, not only because of the job loss and all of that, but like, where do we make meaning with one another? These simple experiences, whether it's tactile with pottery, it's out in nature. You see a lot of like people going back to the earth, grounding themselves. And it is the paradox of balancing ourselves with the technological, the inorganic, and the organic, perhaps. Um, but I still wonder what it is that when we slow down and we listen not only to one another. You said earlier that AI is insightful. How can we listen and dialogue with one another and with AI? Maybe let's start at the language, large language model level, like the chat GPTs or the Claudes of the world. How could we bring AI and humans together in that slowing down, that listening, that meaning making together? Because a lot of people, I think, are still using, and we're all guilty of it. Like in my early days of using ChatGPT, it was like, okay, you know, I was thinking of it as like a sophisticated Google, right? And I think there's still people that are like, hey, Claude, I have, five, apples and some cinnamon and I don't know, some, all these ingredients in my refrigerator. I just got back after a trip. What can I do with all of this? And it spits out a recipe. There's more that that AI can do than that. So I'm just wondering from where you sit, like if we need, how might AI and humans slow down and make that meaning together? What are your thoughts? And it's probably just exploratory, discovering stage at this point.
Discovering stage.
Yeah.
What comes to mind is how we design our interaction. Like, this is an incredible tool. The problem is not the tool. The problem is how we engage with it in order to help society as a whole. Like, if we, and this is making me think of a little bit of the Buckminster Fuller training of like working on the world game, which was like this big spaceship Earth, and we are kind of showing the interconnectivity of
Right.
energy and health and yeah, political systems. And I think that AI can give us and synthesize some data for us. It can be sort of this real incredible resource to solve some of humanity's biggest biggest problems.
Sure.
It has the possibility of that, but it's all about whether we as humans can mature is the wrong word, but like can if we
Hmm.
can metabolize
Mm.
and not keep up. It seems competitive. I need the words for this, but it's about how we can engage in such a way where we are trying to make the world work for 100% of humanity, like it really, that is some of Buckminster Fuller's language there in World Game. But how do we make the world work for 100% of humanity without ecological offense or
Yeah.
disadvantage to anyone? It's a big, lofty goal, but I think Buckminster Fuller would have been, if he was alive today, very excited to engage with AI. He would say, the tool is not the problem, it's the problem of design. We need to design this so we can integrate with it and integrate understanding.
I
And
love that. integrate understanding. So, and that's what we're starting to experiment with, because my journey with AI has advanced like significantly since I had, well, in my own personal experience, I had last summer, well, it was last May, my entire trajectory for the rest of the year kind of imploded, and I was left with time
Mm,
to explore with
yeah.
AI. And I had more raw, open conversations with AI. And I think at the beginning, I was approaching AI more as like a tool. And then over time, it became more of a thought partner. And then over time, we've actually embedded it as a team member. We have 3 AI team members on our team now, in addition to our
Mm,
human team members. And we actually design activities to
for
actually
sure.
get the voice and the reflection. And I've been pilot testing in larger, Fortune 1000 firms, where we actually bring in, we have the group dialoguing about it. And then I've designed, and I didn't think about this, Stacy, until you brought it up, but it is how we are intentionally designing the interaction. So
Right.
I've created custom GPTs, we've created custom kind of environments
Excellent.
for humans and AIs to reflect together, but it's really in the nascent early stages. And so maybe there's something also we can learn from all of your corporate engagements. I think, and this is like crazy, I had to verify this with you before we talked today. You've touched more than 1 million people through your work. Like, I mean,
Yes.
that's like, I will brag about it, because like, incredible. Like, and these are through large organizations too. This is like, Johnson and Johnson, Kaiser Permanente, Humana, Gap. I mean, so many different, Levi Strauss, like a lot of different firms. I'm just rattling off the ones that I remember. Um, there's a lot
Great.
more, but maybe we can, like, out of those million people that you've touched with the way that you've designed activities for reflection and dialogue, what do you notice in organizations that started to learn the power of dialogue? Like, what are they doing right versus where like dialogue is missing? Like, is there a belief that they have? Is there, what makes dialogue work powerfully? Of course, you have it within your programs, but I think some of your organizations have really seen the power of this and taken it further than maybe
Yeah, I mean,
others.
so I might not frame it completely just about the power of dialogue, but I can understand
Okay.
framing it that way. But I think it really comes back to yeah, maybe a shift of mindset, which then is an outcome of kind of dialogue. So I don't know. I'm just kind of like breaking that
Mm,
down. Having
mm,
having the under we are human. We understand things from stories. If you share a personal story of where you were at one place and then something happened, and this is your hero's journey, this is how you've been transformed. I mean, we're trying to replicate that in programs like this. But, maybe I'll give an example of this
yeah.
recent project where an healthcare organization was trying to shift their culture to become patient-centric in everything that they did. That's a easily said and much harder to do,
Sure.
especially as an organization where you still have to, you know, make money and, so how do you shift that? You don't do it by putting a poster on the wall, and you don't do it by
No.
saying, "Oh, these are our values and it's on the back of your card, and now that it's on the back of your card, you're just gonna live that." It's more like listening to patients and their family members, like, "What are your lived experiences of us, and where are
Mm,
we falling short? Where are the pain points, but where are also the bright spots? And how can we, share those bright spots and get inspired, and how can we share those pain points to also be inspired to change and
mm,
make things different?" And so I think when you integrate the story of people that are experiencing your service or a product, when you create those stories, even if you are behind the scenes and, not servicing that customer or that patient directly, how is what you're doing supporting the people that can do that more? But I think there's a shared understanding. And if organizations kind of create more space
mm,
for intentional digestion and ways to metabolize the incredible information that we have at our fingertips now and incredible
mm,
insights that we have, if we can keep up with it, if we can create space for that, I think that there's opportunity to have all of the kind of sort of grunt work done by AI so that I can look you in the eyes and understand who you are and how I can connect with you. You know, as anybody in the healthcare industry knows, like it's maddening when you wait hours to go into a doctor's appointment and they're just inputting all the information onto the computer and not even looking at you. You're like, hello, human, connect with me, know me. So I think we can replace that. If you know that all the information's being tracked, then you can have more presence. I mean, healthcare is going to be a place where all of the diagnostics and all of the information, I mean, we can get to a place where we are all much healthier and have the information at our fingertips in order to know how to get there. I think we can shift our thinking, not to be Pollyanna, but we have to design this system. And right now, AI is designing AI, and
Yeah.
it's
At an
how do we get
exponential
at
pace
an
that we can't
exponential
quite get.
pace
Yeah.
and based on a small group of people that
Mm.
may or may not have the same um, scruples or ethics or understanding of why um, certain societal is it a power grab or can we shift from, fear and power grab to what could be for a society that works together, that is, one humanity that kind of can get to uh, having a very healthy and powerful lived experience. I mean, how do we get to that inspiration? I think we need to work on that story arc of like, okay, if you're going to have more free time, um, can't we use AI for the challenging parts in life and then get to be a bit more creative in our lives? It is sort of where art and craft comes back and art comes back, the things that humans and storytelling and being together and creating community, more time for that, I think, is a really potential positive outcome that can arise from all of this.
For certain, and then you hear the pushback on that. Like I'm in love
Of
with these more organic, grounded, uses of my time connected to nature. But I'm also in love with paying my bills and being able to subsist. And so what I'm wondering about is you know I was just reading a couple of headlines this morning about some more companies that are laying off, like 40% of their workers because they're really increasing the amount of AI. And when you think about and when you ask them, like Jack Dorsey, the headline was around the cuts that he made, and he said, well, the main reason is artificial intelligence, right? And it's
Yeah,
augmented
true.
intelligence. And then I think about healthcare, and there's a lot of healthcare organizations that are embedding AI agents in a workflow. But I don't know if they're doing workflow redesign. I'm not sure if they're thinking about the organic lived experience of the
Right.
patients. Maybe they are through design
Maybe they
thinking.
are.
Maybe they are, and maybe I'm completely off base. But I'm just wondering, is there a conversation that you think organizations urgently need to have right now? But they're not because they're in love with the technological advancements, the savings, they're in this arms race of deploying the AI, but maybe there's a conversation that we're not having that would help us make use of the technology more intentionally for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what people are hollering about. How do we have some intentional design here? Not um I think how do we embrace the tool and think of this as a design challenge right now
Mm,
and how we engage with it and how we use it, I think needs to be deeply explored and
mm,
think there is possibility there. I mean, I do see possibility here, but I can go I can go down the fear path
Right.
just as easily, and that can be very. I think we have to manage that in an honest way, like loss of like I say, not being able to see where you sit in this large picture can be um terrifying for people, not just
Sure.
falling into
Yeah.
who am I now if I'm not contributing to society in this way. And I think if we're not able to have a shared understanding of what the challenges are and a shared understanding of what the possibilities are as well, uh, we're there. It's incoherent. There's no coherence together.
Yeah.
We have to manage the story arc in a way that we there's some co-writing that
I love
happens,
that. Yeah.
and there's some, you know,
Co-creation. We're co-creating our way forward.
yeah, but we have to listen to the needs
Yeah.
and the pain and we can't just sort of say, "Oh, everything's gonna be perfect now. Now we're gonna have
No.
great healthcare. Now we're gonna have great school." Yeah, I think we can have great schools if information is just at our fingertips. Now, maybe it can be all about dialogue and problem solving and team understanding and all of the things that are exciting about learning. It could be, work could be more about craft and deep conversation and creativity. I mean, it could be.
That
I
is a
do believe that.
possibility and the infinite potentials in the universe, absolutely. And people, there's AI experts that say,
Yeah,
like Mo Gaudat often talks about, like, I think we're going to reach for that space. There is going to be a new possibility that we will live into and
yeah,
co-create in a very grounded way where there is more abundance and we will be tapping into the higher order of
yeah,
humanity's potential. But we're going to go through a period that's more challenging until we
yeah.
get there. Now, does it have
I
to be
agree.
as deep of a dip? That's what I'm wondering, right? Like maybe we have to go, because listen, we as humans, we have to let go of the way that we've known how the whole world is organized. Like right now, I feel like the whole post World War II global economic order is like imploding. I feel like even the way that
It
I
is.
think about adding value, every day, the more that I'm learning new AI skills and I'm trying new things on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to rethink, not just use AI as a
We
tool.
do.
I have to think about like how can I completely redesign what I'm doing so that to leverage all that AI is capable of. And then what does that mean for the value that I bring? So it's like this existential dialogue with myself
This.
and my
It
team
is.
every single day. And it's like this breathless pace. And it's not learning, it's not just like the technological skills that are the gap. I keep returning to you saying we need to design the conversation and the meaning making and the story, how we are going, we're co-authors in this. But if we don't show up as co-authors in this story,
Right.
AI just, I mean, you know how if you don't own your algorithm, the algorithm owns you. If you don't like subscribe to things that are from like I consciously choose things that are completely polarized perspectives so that the algorithm feeds me a diversity of perspectives. Otherwise, it's very easy to like land in a little echo chamber of your own and feel very self-righteous. So I'm wondering, like, maybe this is the question, Stacy. Like, if you could design one conversation for the world right now. And we could start this
Oh
like
my
at
gosh.
dinner tables. Okay, I know it's huge, but like let me just bring it to the dinner table. Like what if I've got two girls, you know this, but for everyone that's listening, I have two teenage girls, 19 and about to be 21. And everything that I'm paying for in their college, I'm really wondering if this is going to even like, I mean, the critical thinking skills will be helpful, but I wonder if they're preparing them for
Yes.
a world that's disappearing, you know?
You are critical thinking. Do not underestimate the value of getting together and exploring different topics that don't directly relate to this future world. I mean, I think art and art history and come on, I don't want to discount a college college
Well,
education in
did you
this
see that
world that we're living.
McKinsey's now hiring liberal arts majors because it's
I mean,
it's
they
it's sending
should.
all of the analysis to AI and it's saying we need people who know how to do everything that you've been talking about, grapple with differences, see the gray,
Yes.
not just the black and white, make meaning
Yes.
together. Like all of this, probably for if you had a STEM degree, you might be like, oh my God, what are they talking about? But really, this is how
That's right.
humans for centuries have made
That's
meaning.
right.
And so I know this is a big question, but like, let's talk through this together. If we could design one dialogue for the world right now that we could start like at the dinner table. Okay? We're not like taking on like saving the world here, but like what's what would that look like? What's a conversation that we need to have beginning with ourselves?
We need to listen to more comedians, and we need more, you know, creativity. I just feel that when you're sitting around the table talking, so many people want to hear themselves speak. Like, we need to listen to each other and just give space. Um, you know, that doesn't seem so exciting. It is really lovely to sit around and share a meal with friends and converse. Um, and we've been doing this as humans and since forever. And I
Since
think
fire.
since fire, since fire.
Right?
Good. That's nice. Yeah. And there's I don't know, there is something about that oral tradition of, what are the mythical stories that we've shared since the beginning of time, and I think things do get forgotten. There's like forgotten knowledge, and I am going to bring us back a little bit to work we did, both of us, in Hawaii. I mean, you've lived in
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii, but like I think of the Kamehameha schools, and I think of like, oh my gosh, the celestial navigation. And I wanted to bring this up a little bit. A dear friend of mine has worked 10 years on this book, this novel called The Wayfinder. It's fictional, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really helps you explore and understand Tonga and the knowledge, how knowledge was passed on orally and through poetry. And what have we lost in this
Mm.
speed that we've
Yeah.
been on in this culture, and what are
Mm.
the lost gems of what it really means to be human on this like spaceship Earth, this planet that's hurling through space at 40,000 miles an hour. And like, here we are, you and I are on this planet walking it right now at the same time. Like, wow, it's so amazing. And I don't know, it does seem like it seems a little, it seems like there's been a bit of getting out of touch. And I think we need to, I like the title of your podcast being Deeply Human, and I think maybe that's the topic. Like, what does it mean to you to be deeply human? And how do we, uh, I think maybe my life's work, what is about bringing a little bit of that like human part in, like, what are the stories? What is our impact? How do we connect to this big, strategy? I can work with executives, but I also just really like listening to the people that are doing the real work, and
Yeah.
um, what is their experience, and what are they talking to their kids about around the dinner table, and and how do they understand the mark they're making while they're here on this planet? What legacy are they a part of? And
Yeah.
that goes back to these executives that have so much power. Like, are you leaving a legacy that you're proud of? And
Yeah.
let's get on board with this intentional design to leave a legacy that improves people's lives here.
Absolutely. No, it's so powerful, and I think you're onto something there. There's a reclaiming of what it means to be human, maybe, and maybe some indigenous societies haven't lost that. Like I spent over, gosh, was it a dozen years? It was a dozen years in Hawaii, and I've studied with the people of the high Andes, and various different indigenous cultures speak to listening and storytelling, and they've not lost that. Like I think in our world of speed and information explosion acceleration, we haven't maintain that to the degree that some of these cultures have. So maybe that dialogue could tap into that and help us reclaim some of that.
I agree. I think that is where we're very fascinated with cross-cultural
Yeah.
communication. Like, what can we learn from each other? And w- w- it hasn't always worked. The power grab. We've lost a lot, and we're living not in balance with our what can this earth sustain? I mean,
Mm,
honestly, I
mm,
right now, maybe AI can help us to understand our resources and redistribute and help um, create better conditions. Maybe it can solve some of these largest
sure.
challenges in
Yeah.
society, but again, it comes back to the intentional design of it and exerting that intentional design over um, and with and collaborate with. Like, here are our challenges, and this is what we need, and this is not what we, help
Yeah.
us understand the patterns. And I think
Mm,
we could get to some possibility there. I certainly hope so. It is a very fascinating time that we live in. Uh, my son got very angry at his uncle Johnny at Christmas time, or it was actually for my mother-in-law's birthday, where we all are supposed to recite poems, and it's a meaningful time. We pick a poem and we recite it to her for her birthday. That's our kind of part of our tradition.
mm.
And Johnny came in with this AI produced poem, and my son just got furious. Like, I mean, there is this
Interesting.
counter reaction
Yeah.
of like, What is our dead? Uncle Johnny is our dead." And I adored his, like, intensity because, of course,
Yeah.
he's my son, but, like, how do we like, again, Johnny had some good points, like, "Oh, people thought music was dead when the synthesizer was invented," but we can incorporate it into, what creativity is, and how do we meet this moment? How do we as humans need to adapt to meet this moment to actually make good art? And by that, I mean, like, live well and enjoy the moments we have here together.
Yes.
I don't know.
We
Does that
bring
make
our
any
deep
sense?
1000%. And that's why at this moment in the history of humanity and the evolution of humanity. It sounds really big, but we literally are in one of the craziest times, like for
We
people to
really
be
are.
alive. And maybe every generation says
Every
that this is,
generation feels that
but
way.
this is truly paradigm shifting in ways that we're not even grasping. And so
Of
I
course.
hope that you will bring your talents on how to design the dialogues. And I know that was a big question earlier, like, what's the dialogue that we
Mm.
need to have?
Yes.
But I agree with you. And it's not just because I named the podcast or my body of work Deeply Human, but I
Yeah.
grapple with that. Like, what is the value that we're going to bring in? How can we be co-creators in that? Because I think there's so much I've been blown away, and every day I'm learning new things. I spend at least an hour or more, sometimes 3 hours, as much as possible on AI, but I'm also spending equal time doubling down on reflection and meditation and diving into what makes me like organically human, because a machine cannot replace my lived experience. And I don't have the answers. I'm just trying to figure it out every day. And that's why I started this podcast. Like, let's dialogue through it together. So I hope that more people can find you, Stacy,
Thank
and
you.
you bring your magic to designing dialogues that really matter at this moment for organizations that really want to bring people along. That maybe they're integrating AI, but the AI is accelerating faster than the humans can metabolize. Well, then that's the perfect space to
Metabolize.
have some kind of design dialogue. But anyway, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you if they do want to explore more, if they want to take this conversation offline and connect with you. Of
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It is fun. I think
course.
we were a little bit all over the place, but I guess that's part of this. Listen, I can't get my voice. I'm at my organization is Learning Design Network, and I can be reached at Stacy, and it's very long, at learningdesignnetwork.com. I would happily connect. Um, and continue some of these threads of conversation that we've had. I think it's an interesting time that we live in now, and we need time to have some deep conversations together. So let's do it.
Thank you so much. And on social media, is there any place that they would also look for you on Instagram or LinkedIn? Maybe LinkedIn,
Ah,
find you on
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn would be good. Yeah, I have a connection
Awesome.
there.
Most of your
Really.
dialogues are with a lot of senior leaders shaping the new direction. So,
Yeah.
anyway, thank you so much for making the time. I love the directions that we did explore. There's a lot more questions than there are answers right now, but that's part of the process is asking the profound questions and deepening the listening together. So, thank you for jumping into the mix with us today.
I feel like we really did jump in, but thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, it's great because you're a deep old friend of mine. And who you calling old? I'm just calling us old. No, but I really appreciate our friendship and our how we've been able to work together. I mean, it really has been an honor to work with you and some of your clients as well. So thank you for the opportunities.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll keep it going, but thanks again and have a great rest of your
Okay.
day. Thanks for spending this time with us. If something landed, sit with it. That pause is actually where the real work happens. And if you're navigating this shift at your organization and you'd like to bring this conversation inside your walls, go ahead and find us at deeplyhumanleading.com. If today's episode landed with you, share it with somebody that you think could really use it. The ripple starts there. Until next time, stay curious and stay human.